This is TG with TechMadeEZ. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And how affordable is it to have a home lab server that has 30 terabytes, 64 gigs of RAM, 16 cores, 32 threads, and holds 4 NVMe's for $550. Now this particular system, what we're taking today is we're going to take an existing server workstation and turn it into our home lab server to store our files and our apps. And now there are options I'm going to talk about, and these options are going to be in this build. And when I say build, it's not really a build, we're just adding some components to the server to make it a file server and an app server. And one of those components is the CPU, the RAM, so on and so forth. Now some of the components I'm not going to show how to install. I'm going to leave a link to a video that shows you how to replace the CPU and the RAM, so on and so forth. I just did this video a couple of weeks ago on this same system, using it as a video editor. And so this system is the HP Z440. Now, I've touted the HP Z420 as a file server, and the HP Z420 can also be used for Proxmox. And I'm going to show you that one as well, show you the HP Z440. But the reason why I'm going to the Z440 is the processors are newer, there's newer coding those processors use that maybe some apps won't be able to take advantage of on the HP Z420. But I do have a friend that uses the HP Z420 as his app and file server as well. And it's a little bit more flexible. You can put a little bit more hard drives into the HP Z420 than you can the 440. But the 440 is going to be a server that will last for years. So let's talk really quick about some of the options that I'm going to be adding to this that will add to the cost of this, but you don't have to do this. One is the hard drive. So this particular motherboard supports 6 SATA hard drives. Now, the system itself has places for 2 hard drives in the front, 2 hard drives in the case. But you can add, with some little flexibility, you can add 2 more hard drives to there if you want to. Now, one of the other options, though, is that you can get a hard drive enclosure. The hard drive enclosure will allow me to have 3 hard drives. And in this particular case, to get our 30 terabytes, we're going to be adding 5 hard drives to the system, 6 terabytes each. And so in this case, I'm going to be adding the 3-port or the 3 hard drive enclosure. Again, this is an option. It'll add another $75 to your build. But I just want to show you this build with the options as well in case you want to go this route. Putting the 3-bay drive in there, it's easier to access a drive when it goes bad, so on and so forth. So now let's talk about transcoding for a minute. If you plan on running Plex, JellyFin on here, so on and so forth, the CPU isn't going to have any issues at all doing transcoding. Where transcoding becomes an issue today with modern film, with 4K movies, is a lot of 4K movies have color mapping. And this particular processor can transcode, but it can't do the color mapping. So if you're running a whole bunch of 4K videos that need color mapping, then you would have to buy a video card for this. You can buy the Intel 310 video card. It can do color mapping and transcoding, so on and so forth. Now, as far as the processor goes, there is another processor option that I'll have on here as well, and that is the 18-core, 36 threads. Now that's going to add another $40 to the system if you go ahead with that particular CPU. But 16 cores, 32 threads is also a lot to run as many apps as you want on this server. So as far as the RAM goes, we're doing 64, but it can hold way more than that. We're taking up 2 banks, and I think the RAM that I found on eBay is 4 16 sticks, but you can buy 2 32 sticks. And all of these parts are going to be in the descriptions below. Most of these parts are used, with the exception of the NVMe drives and the 3-bay drive as well, along with the 4-bay NVMe card itself. Now, in this particular system, we're also adding a 10 gig networking card, and that's another $25. So I'll have a price breakdown of all of this stuff. And again, most of this stuff we're buying used. The networking cards, $25. You can get them $25 all day long on eBay for that price. So in this particular case, because I don't know, because there's so many options for server software, I'm not going to be showing how to install TrueNAS or Unraid on this particular system. That's going to be up to you, but we are going to jump into the system and see how it performs. We're going to go into the BIOS, because we are going to have to go into the BIOS. Let me talk about the NVMe 4-port card. The NVMe 4-port card in order to see all the drives, you have to go into the motherboard and tell it that it's a 4x4x4x4. And then it'll see all the drives, because it does not have bifurcation built onto the card, but it is built into the motherboard. And so we're going to make that change in the motherboard and a few other changes in there to install our operating system. And then we'll go ahead and check out the performance of the system. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to go over all the components that you're going to need. We're going to install all those components. Again, we're working from an existing system. I'm going to give you talk shortly about the Z420, but we're going to focus on this Z440. This is my favorite computer ever. And if you've seen my channel, I've talked about gaming with this one, personal desktop, video editing, so on and so forth. This is the first time I've ever done a server with it, but it makes an excellent server because of the Xeon options that you have for the CPUs and how much RAM. Now let's just talk about the controller card, because in this particular system I am throwing in a controller card. I'm not using the onboard motherboard controller card. Now there's a couple of reasons why I'm doing that. Because we're using hard drives and I'm putting in 10 gig networking, I want as fast as access and performance to those hard drives as possible. So the controller card is a 12 gigabit throughput controller card. The SAS drives are also 12 gigabit or 10 gigabit throughput as well. And so I just want the highest performance possible in the server. Again, these are options. You don't have to do them. You can buy SATA drives if you want. The SATA drives will maybe cost you a little bit more, maybe $25 to $40 more over that $200 mark. But I just want to have the fastest file access that I can. So let's go ahead, let's get into the system, let's put these parts in. Let's go ahead and go into the BIOS, make the BIOS changes we need for this server, and we'll go ahead and jump on. Again, I'm not going to show how to install your server software on here. This video is already long enough as it is, but we'll go ahead and test the performance of the system. Let's get started. Okay, really quick, I've talked about this HP Z420 before, and it's not that you can't do these with Dells and Lenovo's, but the drives, putting in the drives is a little bit more complicated in those, because the Dell only fits 2 drives, and there's no room to put a drive bay like this, unless you get into more expensive units on the Dell side. Lenovo, I'm not into Lenovo. I've had a Lenovo before, and I just don't care for them on their desktop side of things. So this is the HP Z420. We're not going to be using this one. We're going to be using the HP Z440. But this is a great, if you just want raw power file server, this is great, because you can fit up to 8 drives in this one, and you can put in a 5 bay drive here, and it will hold 3 hard drives inside here. You can also run Proxmox on here as well. I have a neighbor that runs Proxmox on his HP Z440. He's using an app and a file server as well. The only reason why I'm going with the Z440 is it does have newer processors in it, and some of your apps may work better with some of the coding, the extra coding that they put in to the processors here. This one is lacking in some of the codes that some apps need to run today, but it makes a great file server. I use this as a file server only, and then I have an app server that accesses my HP Z440. But when I first got into servers, I was doing all my server was in one. I had Plex, and I was using basically a PC, not this particular one, and I had my hard drives in there, and I had Plex running in there. And then eventually I went to a separate file server and separate app server. But for those of you who are trying to save money, this is an excellent way to do that. So let's take a look inside here and let's start installing everything. Okay, with the HP Z440, everything is modular. You really don't need any tools to work in here. So you just lift the lid off. Now in this particular case, one thing I wanted to talk about is these HP Z440s, they come with this memory shroud that has fans to cool the memory. They also come with this front fan here. Some of these systems, when you buy them used, they may or may not come with these. If it's important for you to have these, they will operate without them, and it'll stay cool without them too. It's just convenient if you do have them to keep your RAM cooler and keep some air flowing through here. And on eBay, well, a lot of times when they list these things, they don't show the inside, so you don't know whether they are not. So you might want to text or message over the eBay app whether they come with the memory shroud and the front fan. And if they don't, ask them if they can include them. So, but it's really easy to remove these. You just push these levers in, and that pulls right out. And so your RAM will go here. Now, the thing is, you can operate it without this. I normally don't use this shroud because This is usually this is a test system for me. I'm always testing different things with it, different Linux desktops as well. And so it's just a pain for me to pull this in and out. So I never usually have it in. But it is a good idea to have it in there. Now, depending on the RAM you get, if you get 32 gig sticks like this one has to 64 gigs, to give you 64 gigs of RAM, it'll tell you that it wants you to use the memory shroud, but you just hit F1 to bypass that over and boot up, and you can run it. And my son was gaming with this system for a long time without the memory shroud on there. And when he'd reboot, he'd just have to hit F1. So there is a way to bypass also the plug that this plugs into, but we're not going to cover that now. So again, the other video is going to show you how to put in the CPU. It's real easy, and the memory is real easy. And again, you may be a person that has worked with computers before, or may not. So some of this may be just natural to you, and some of it may be new to you. So, but again, the only thing is, it may not come with a video card. So we're just going to put in one of the video cards that I have here. It doesn't have an HDMI port, so if you need HDMI, you can always buy one of these adapters that converts it to HDMI. So, and I'll have the price of that in the link as well. But I'm just going to put in a card that has both, this one, or that has an HDMI card in it. Now you may get one with the HDMI. And again, if you are going to put, say you're going to use this as a gaming server, you obviously can put in a gaming card in here. Right here, it's 700 watts. It's got two 6-pins on it, and you can buy a 6 to 8 pin adapter to run that. But in this case, we're just doing this as a basic server, not a game server. And again, if you want to do 4K transcoding to do the color mapping, then you would have to buy a more expensive card than the one that we're putting in here. But it's pretty easy. This right here, it has this flap that holds it down. You just got to push that up, and then you'll just put your card in. So it'll just fit in like that. That's all you need to do. We're putting in the network card. We're just going to put it in the slot here. Now this card here, this is a 4-port. This goes into a 16 PCI slot. Okay, so I just put in the 4-port card here. All right, so that's all there is to do to put those in. So at this point, most of the time they come with SATA cables, but it's possible it may not, so you may need at least one SATA cable. Now, most of these always come with a small DVD player, and if you're not going to use the DVD player, you can take the SATA cable off of it if you want to. But I have an extra one here, so we're just going to plug this in real quick. So we have to put our operating system on. Okay, what I do want to show you here, these are the two 6-pins, and we have some 8-pins hooked them to it because my son was running. This is a gaming system. Now, one thing that's included in this price are these cables here, these splitters. We're going to need at least 2 of those, and it's about $6 for 3 of them. So we're just going to use one of these because we are also going to we need 2 of these for the hard drives that we're putting in. So we'll go ahead and put one of these in right now. And then we'll go ahead and hook this one up here. Now, I'm not going to be really fancy on how I'm doing this SSD. In this particular case, I can just put it right there. There's actually a little metal piece here that kind of holds cables, and it easily slides just right in there, and it can hold it there. You can mount it any way you want. This is just the way I'm going to mount this in this particular case. What we're going to do now too is we've got 2 hard drives that we're going to put in here. And so we're going to put this one in here. Now, one thing that's important also when you're looking at buying this system is you got to make sure that it comes with these hard drive adapters or caddies, whatever you want to call them, because you're going to need them to put them in here. Sometimes they come with them, sometimes they don't. And again, this may be something that you may want to ask the seller to make sure that it does include them. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick this one on here like so. It's pretty easy. Just line up the holes on each side, pop it on, and then we're just going to drop this in. We'll hook these hard drives up later. Okay, so when I first started making this, getting everything ready for this video, I forgot to price out the cables. Sometimes these SAS cards come with the cables, sometimes they don't. This one did. The one I priced out didn't because it's only $14, but it's another $12 to get the cables, so it makes it closer to $500 for the system. I'm going to plug these in now, and I'm going to wait to plug them into the motherboard until we get the enclosure in. So all we have to do, and sometimes these are located on the top, sometimes they're located on the back. It just depends on the manufacturer. And LSI is the biggest SAS controller card manufacturer out there. They make cards for Dell, HP, so on and so forth. So all you have to do on eBay is just type in LSI. It may say it's a Dell card, but it will have also LSI in the description. So we're just going to plug that in there because we're going to go ahead and shove these through here. We're going to set this to the side for a minute because we have to install our 3-bay hard drive enclosure. Now, the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and unlock. We're going to take this front cover off, and we just have to pull these tabs up, and that front cover will come right out. And then in here, it usually has a metal thing like this in there for the blank. And then the power cord that we're going to do here is, this one is for these drives here. So we're going to go ahead and grab our other power extender, and we're going to go ahead and plug that in there. There's a cord, there's SATA power cords that are right here, and the SATA power cords that are down here. And so now we're just going to plug this into here. We're going to push this through here. This makes it way easier to install this hard drive enclosure. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to send one of these through here, because the other one, the other four, we're going to use on these hard drives here. So, but we're going to go ahead and hook this enclosure up right now. So let's plug in our power. So this makes it really convenient to just plug these in beforehand. So we're going to also go in here. I'm just going to plug number 1, and it doesn't really matter. You don't have to plug in number 1, but one of them is going to be left unplugged. So I'll start with 1. Sorry, that might have gone outside the camera. I'm going to just plug these in real quick. I'm going to start on the bottom here. And where's our number 2? Well, like I said, it doesn't really matter what order you put these in, but I just like to keep everything in sequence. Here's 3. And then we have this extra one here. So now all we have to do is put this in. Now, one thing that we will need to do is you have these screws here, and we'll need to attach some of those screws onto here to slide that in. Okay, once your cables are plugged in, it's real easy. You just slide this in, and it's not going to lock. So what we're going to do is HP always gives you these rail screws right here. So I've already taken 2 of them off. So I'm just going to put those screws in right here right now to hold this in. Now these I want to get tight because I'm only putting these 2 screws in, but that's all you really need. One thing you got to be really careful of is down here below, they really tighten the power cables that are down below here. They are really tight down here, and so you got to kind of push them out of the way. And that's why it's also better to use the RAM over here, because all this stuff can get in the way here. And you can put in 128 gigs of RAM if you want. You got 4 more slots here, and then you got 4 more slots here. But I can't imagine most people with the home servers are going to use more than 128 gigs of RAM. But that is there. And depending on what operating system you're using, like TrueNAS is going to use a ton of RAM for their file system. So if you're using TrueNAS, you might want to throw in a little bit more RAM, or maybe not. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. 64 is going to be fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug this card back in. Okay, once you get that card plugged in. Now, one thing that you're going to need here is you're going to need a SAS to SATA adapter, since these are SAS hard drives. So what I'm doing here is I'm just to stick this in, and you'll want to get these ones here. They do make these 45s, but they kind of are in too close here, so it's hard to get them in, and sometimes the cover doesn't want to close. So all we have to do is just put these SAS converters in. And then we can hook up our power to them. Power to this one. And then we're going to hook up our SATA cable. Here's P1. Here's P2. And then what you'll want to do here to make sure that you can close the cover is we're just going to need to press these down. Let's put in our hard drives. That's one thing about this case. I'm going to put this back in really quick. Oh, I'm going to leave this out because I want to show you when you're booting this up without this that it'll run. So I'm going to leave that out for now. I'm just going to shove these to the side here for a minute. And let's put our hard drives in. All right, so I stood this up so we can put the hard drives in. It's pretty easy on these enclosures. This particular one, the cable attachments are right here, and they're going to go down like this when it's on its side. So we'll just put that in right here. If for some reason it doesn't want to connect, then maybe you might have it this way, and then if it's that way, it's not really, it's not going to work. It's going to give you resistance. But so if you put this in, and you can look in there with a flashlight to see which way to go in. And we're just going to open the rest of these, put these in. We're going to put this one in. Our cover here has this here. These just pop out. So I'm going to just pop this out real quick. The easiest way to get these out without breaking them, just get a flathead screwdriver and just put it in right there. And it'll just pop out. So these here, you just have to line these up. You just have to line these up on the side. And sometimes when you get these in, there's a little finagling to do, but this one's pretty easy. And it's done. And we are ready to rock and roll. Let's fire her up, see how it performs. Okay, I just turned the system on, and what you're going to see up in the right top corner is the NIC card. And then the next one is going to be the controller card, the hard drive controller card. And this one here, it's going to initialize the hard drives. Now, if you don't see all of your hard drives in here, maybe you bought SATA hard drives instead of SAS hard drives, you may have to go into the controller menu and tell it to activate the SATA drives, because this is really set up for SAS 12 gigabit throughput drives. But it is downward compatible, but sometimes you do have to go into the controller card and tell that, just put an X on it that you want to use the different drives. But if you go ahead and buy the 12 gigabit throughput SAS drives, that you should see them all there. So this is a screen that you're going to come up with because we don't have that memory shroud in there to keep the memory cool. Again, you can run it without it. You just hit enter and go. And we're going to hit F10 because we want to go into the setup, because there's a few things that we want to set up in here. Okay, on this screen here, we really don't have to look at much. We can do system information if we want, but we just want to go into advanced for a minute here. And in advanced, we just want to go here to boot options. In boot options here, we don't have to worry about most of the stuff. In fact, this one right here, if you're going to boot from a NIC card, then you'd want to enable this. We're not doing that. But the most important thing is we just want to make sure that UEFI boot option is enabled. We can change the boot order of our drives. There is no hard drives in here that have an operating system on it, so none of them are showing here as a boot option right now. As soon as we install the operating system, it will show up in there. But you can change that order, and it'll look at the USB, and then it'll look at your NVMe or your SSD, depending on how you set that up. And the way that you move these around is you just hit enter, and then you use your arrow key and hit enter, and it's done. So that's all you really have to do in here. You just want to make sure that your USB is in here. We need to go to USB media boot support. That needs to be enabled, or you won't be able to boot from a USB drive. That's very important if you're wondering why you can't boot from your USB drive. So we're going to go into security here, and what we want to do here is we're going to go into system security. Now, I've already enabled these, but they were disabled when I booted up. So so this is the way it was when I first looked at this machine. Now, if you want to run VMs, Proxmox, so on and so forth, you have to turn these on. And this is true with any PC that you're doing with, and you're going to be using VMs or something like Proxmox. So you want to enable these. So both of these top two have to be enabled. Okay, one thing that's really important that I forgot to do when we were in the advanced section, we're going to go here to our slot settings. The NVMe 4-port PCI card that we put in there, that is in slot 5, and that is our video. That's one of our extra video slots. And what we need to go down here is where it says bifurcation. I always say this wrong. Sometimes I say bifurcation, but at any rate, you can't leave it on auto. You need to put it on 4x4, 4x4, 4x4. So if you don't do that, it will only see one of your NVMe drives. So you have to change that, or you won't have access to all 4 ports for your NVMe drive. So that's all we need to do here. So now what we're going to do is go back to main, save and exit. We're going to reboot. Then we're going to hit F9 to go into our boot options so that we can boot into our operating system that we're going to install. So I've hit F9 so I can go into the boot menu. And again, this screen's coming up because I don't have the memory shot in there. If I would have kept it in there, then this wouldn't come up. Now, when you get to here, you won't necessarily see all of these drives. The only reason why we're seeing our hard drives here is because they already have information installed on them. They're not blank drives. So we don't want to go to one of those because it doesn't have an operating system on to install. My operating system is installed on this J-Micron USB adapter. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. So you just want to know what your USB is called, your adapter, so that you can go into that. Now I'm just using what's called Vintoy. I have a whole bunch of programs on here for installation, and but at this point I'm just going to go ahead and install an operating system on here, configure it so that we can access it through our network and check out the performance of it. Okay, so here I am on the desktop of this server that we just put together. Now I put Linux Mint XFCE on here. It's a light version of Linux. And I did this just so we could test some of the functionality of this server. Normally, you may be installing TrueNAS, Proxmox, Unraid, Open Media Vault, whatever, the multiple flavors of Linux servers on here. I only put a Linux desktop on here just so I can quickly test the system out. And so what I went ahead here is Samba's installed, went ahead and took those 5 hard drives and created RAID 5 out of those hard drives, so on and so forth. And then I shared them so that in a few minutes we're going to go to my desktop and we're going to access this server through JellyFin and copy some files over just so we can see how it performs. But really quick, let's just take a look. Here's the CPU information here. Now obviously I put in the E5 2696, which is 18 cores, 36 threads. The one that I was talking about was 16 cores, 32 threads. And both of them are options. You would just pay more if you wanted 18 cores and 36 threads. Now you're going to notice the memory is pretty high here, and I'll explain why that memory is high on the system. Now what I did when I was showing you this, I said, hey, you could go ahead and install your operating system on an SSD and how to do that if you wanted to. But since we are putting a 4-port NVMe PCI card, I went ahead and installed the operating system on one of those drives in there. It's 250 gig drive. You'll notice it right here. This is what my operating system is sitting on. And then we have our 2 terabyte drive that we could install, you know, if we're running Proxmox or Unraid or any of the multiple Linux servers out there. We could install our apps on this one, run our apps from the 2 terabyte drive. So, and then here's our 5 hard drives down here that I went ahead and created NVMe, or excuse me, I use ZFS to create the RAID pool, and this is why the memory usage is so high. ZFS uses a lot of memory, and the reason why it does that is because it makes copying files over easy. You don't need a network RAM drive. You don't need to use, say, an NVMe as a network RAM drive to speed that up. And you'll see this in a minute when we go to the desktop, how that works. But if you're using Unraid and stuff like that, you may want to use a RAM drive the way Unraid works. Use one of those ports to create a RAM drive. Just take a look at the performance of the NVMe. Now the NVMe we're not using to store files on, but we are storing it to store our apps on. It's typical performance of any NVMe. We got a 3000 read and a 2000 write. We got almost 2000 on our RAID array. Our 5 drives combined together with RAID 5, we've got almost 2000 megabytes read and almost 500 megabytes write. So it makes it very efficient for reading our files and writing to our file server. But at any rate, so this right here, I just called my RAID array. I just call it RAID. So these are the 5 drives that are installed here. And what I want to do here is I just want to show you that it's got almost 22 terabytes of free space. Now I copied some movies over here because we are going to run JellyFin, so I wanted to access some movies through JellyFin. And also too, one thing you got to realize, we're not getting a full 30 terabytes because hard drives, or any drive for that matter, is never what it says its full extent is. These are supposed to be 6 terabyte, but they're really about 5.5 terabytes. And so, but we're using RAID 5, which gives us one disk that can go out. So you have to subtract that disk from your total amount. Anyway, it gives us about 23 terabytes total once we create the RAID array. And so then here's my NVMe drive as well. And let's just copy a file over so we can see the performance of copying a file over. And you're going to notice it's going really fast. You're looking at 10 gigabit throughput. Now it won't stay at that rate. It'll go down about to 500 megabytes per second. If you were copying a bigger file, it would even out about 500 megabytes per second. And then of course we have our NVMe, and it's going to copy, you know, like an NVMe. It's going to go really fast as well. You're going to notice though that there isn't much speed difference between this one. There is going to be if it's a large file, because like I said, our RAID array that we created is going to perform about 500 megabytes write speed. And so that's what we have going on here. Again, I set up Samba on here so that I could share a couple of folders over the network, and I've got JellyFin installed here. In fact, here's JellyFin here. And we'll play this from my desktop as well, but you'll notice it's going to start perform really well with this system, and it just started in the middle here, but you can scrub, and, you know, it's really quick if you want to go through a movie, so on and so forth. It's really reactive. But let's go ahead and let's jump on my personal desktop. Let's copy some files over and run JellyFin from there and see how it performs. Okay, so here we are on my personal desktop, and what I want to do here is I just want to show you the performance of copying a file over to this file server that we just put together. So now what I have on the right is that's the NVMe drive. I did share it just so you could see how fast it will copy over a 10 gig network, and it's copying over at 10 gigs, and that shouldn't be any surprise because this NVMe drive can write over 2,000 megabytes per second, and so it performs really well. But let's take that same file and copy it over to our RAID drive that we created on that system. And again, this is RAID. I went ahead and shared it, and so I am now have it opened on my desktop, and we'll go ahead and copy this, and you're going to see that it's going to copy at 10 gigabits per second. So this is important. Now it's not going to release it as quick as it did on the NVMe drive, but this is what when you use ZFS as your file system for doing RAID, ZFS uses a lot of RAM to make copying and accessing files really efficient on the server, but you do have to give up some RAM to do that. But it's a very efficient way to do that. And if you're using TrueNAS, or if you're using another server software that you're going to use ZFS, it's just an efficient. I feel that ZFS is the best RAID software formatting out there. Okay, but now what we want to do is we want to go to JellyFin. I'm running JellyFin off of that server on my browser here. And we're going to go ahead and open up a Alita Battle Angel. We're going to start that from the beginning, and you're going to see that it starts off and it works really well. And we're just going to scrub through this. You can see how quick we can go through this file. It's very, very efficient as a video server. But I do want to talk about transcoding for a minute here. I'm going to go to my third desktop, virtual desktop here, because I have Mission Impossible open in 2 JellyFin instances here on Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is on the left is the Blu-ray version, on the right is the 4K version. And you're going to notice on the 4K version how it's washed out. That's because it does color mapping. A lot of 4K videos, not all of them, but a lot of them require color mapping. And your older PCs cannot color map. You would need a newer Intel PC with QuickSync or a video card to do the transcoding and the color mapping for 4K to get the color correction right. So if you're going to be doing a lot of 4K, I'm not a big 4K person, because one thing that I have found out, I have really looked at 4K, I have not seen a huge difference in quality or colors when it comes to the difference between Blu-ray and 4K, like I did going from DVD to Blu-ray. And so I just don't do a lot in 4K on my video server. But if you plan on doing that, then you're going to need a card, a video card. The Intel A310 is a great card for doing transcoding and color mapping. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the price of all these parts and where to get them. All right, so really quick, let's go over the pricing. This video is long enough. All the links will be listed below, so we're going to go through this really quick. Now, the first price that I have on this server is $550. So let's go ahead and go through the parts on that. So your HP, those HP Z440s used, you can get them between $80 and $120. They have the 16-core, 32-thread CPU you can get for $12. The 64 gigs of RAM you can get for $60. The controller card we're not doing, so that's $0. The hard drives are going to be around $220 to $245. These are the SATA hard drives, though. And again, this price also is determined whether you want 6 terabyte, 8 terabyte, or 4 terabyte, whatever it is. But based on the 6 terabyte SATA hard drives, again, server hard drives, $225 to $245. The NVMe 4-port card is $25. We're not doing a 10 gig disk. We're not doing the 3-bay drive bay. And then the NVMe drive for their operating system is between $25 and $35, depending on whether you get
a 256 NVMe for your operating system, or a 30 gig or a 500 gig SSD card for your operating system. So this price here is going to be determined on whether you buy a 256 NVMe drive for your operating system, or you buy a 500 megabyte or 500 gigabyte SSD for your operating system. It's going to be anywhere between $25 and $35 there. Now for your apps, I chose a 2 terabyte because that'll give you plenty of room for your apps. You could get away with a 1 terabyte, the 2 terabytes, $90, $50 for a 1 terabyte. And then the power cables, this is more, you may want to purchase those power cables, but you don't necessarily need them because there's plenty of power connectors for 6 hard drives in the system. But if you do need them, they're $4, so that add $4 to the total. The SAS SATA, we don't need it on this system, so we're looking at approximately $547. I just rounded up to $550. But it also depends on pricing at the time on eBay and on Amazon when you go to put this system together. Now the the other option is, which is the option that we put together, is around $680. Again, the HP's here. The CPU is $45 for the 16 core or 18 core 36 thread, and then the RAM, of course, is another $60. The controller card is $20. The hard drives are around $200. NVMe card $25. We already did that. The NIC, you can pick these up between $20 and $25-$30 all day long on eBay. The 3-bay enclosure is $76. And then obviously we're looking at the NVMe drive or SSD drive for your operating system, and then of course your app NVMe drive. The cables here, the hard drive power cable is $4. And it comes in a pack of 3, so you have 3 to work with. The SAS SATA, $11 for 2 of them, because all you need is 2, so that's $681. Now, one thing I didn't discuss on the prior screen is the video card. Again, some of these don't come, some of these are bare bone, which doesn't really matter because you're going to be either adding to memory or putting in memory, putting in a different CPU, and if you have to get a video card, that's around $14, so it could raise the price of both of them, both systems, by $14 if you're getting a bare bone system. So let's go ahead and look at those really quick. So what we have here is we have the HP Z440, but this particular one, now at the time I've bought these before, researched them before, and for whatever reason there isn't any below $100 right now, but don't let that fret you. So if we click on this gaming one, which I've already done over here, and see how it says a gaming PC, like I said, my kids game on this system as well. It's a great system. Gaming is going to lack a little bit just because the processors, the megahertz, aren't as high as the new processors today, but it does a really good job still with gaming. But what my point is here is you can make offer here, and you could probably get them down close to $100, and it includes the shipping and handling. So again, you could probably get close to $100 if you made an offer. But this is what I want to show you with this one, because this one they do show the inside, and you'll notice here it has the memory module fan, it has the fan in the front here, and it has your hard drive trays right here. So this is a great system because it comes with everything, and it does come with 16 gigs of RAM, no hard drive, no OS, which is a lot of the cases. They may come with RAM and a video card. This one comes with a video card, so you don't even have to worry about that. So let's go to the next thing on our list, the hard drives here. These hard drives, I said it was $40, but when you buy these hard drives, you can go ahead, see how it says make offer, and it says there's 10 available. A lot of times you can go ahead and text through the eBay app asking for a discount if you're going to get all 5 of them, or if you want to buy them slowly at a time, you can make an offer and get them that way. Sometimes when I've bought these hard drives in the past, I haven't bought them because my server right now has 8 terabyte drives, and I didn't buy them all at once, but I bought the same brand, same everything when I did go to buy it. Now this one here says it's Seagate, but this is more than likely made by HGST, but it is a server hard drive. So just remember that's what's very important here. So when I do a search for hard drives here, I will do a search for HGST because those are server hard drives, but you don't have to stick with HGST as long as they are server grade hard drives. So this one here, you're looking at $43, but again, you can make an offer on these, so on and so forth. So there's your hard drive options there. Now the cards, and again, your hard drive price, you might want to look at the 8 terabyte one, just see what those prices are. It's been a while since I looked at them, but I think they're around $50, $60. Now the controller card is right here. This one is $16.50. A lot of times they're around $20. Here's the ones for $20. here are two that come with the cables. Now, if you need the cables, this cable is $7, so it would be $14 plus the other $14, which is $28. So you're going to spend anywhere between $25 and $35 on the controller card. And by the way, these are nice controller cards, very fast. Now, this is what I don't understand about this. These cards right here that have this end here, these are the faster cards, but this one says that it's 6 gigabytes. I've never seen that before on these cables. They're really 12 gigabyte cables, because if we go back and we look at this one here, you'll notice that these are coming with those cables. So not quite sure why they say 6 gigabytes on those cables. But at any rate, let's move along. So here's our RAM. Now I put $60. This one says $50, but they're charging $8.30 in shipping, so it's closer to $60. This one's $60, so on and so forth. And this one's Samsung. This is Nginx. And when I can, sometimes I like to buy the Samsung ones, but you don't have to. These ones work as well. But there you go on your RAM. And then your video card. Here's one for $14. Now this video card's going to need a display adapter to HDMI, and I'll go over that. So if you can't find a card that has an HDMI adapter, or then built into it, you can get adapters. But also too, here are our CPUs. This is the E5 2698B3, that's the 16 core, 32 threads. And then the E5 2696B3 is the one that's 18 cores, 36 threads. And I can't remember if I said this one wrong. This is 16 cores, 32 threads. So that's our CPUs there. Then again, this is a video card that I just talked about. And you'll notice that it has a display adapter, and it depends on the monitor you're using, may come with one. And pretty much the server is going to be headless anyway. All of my servers are headless. I just need the video when I first do the install. So you don't really need a nice card unless you want one for transcoding, or you're going to turn this into a gaming server, so on and so forth. So now let's go to Amazon really quick, because it's here. So if you do need, oh, one thing I was going to show you here, this card here is $13, but it has mini HDMI displays on them. So again, on Amazon you can get a mini HDMI for $4 here, $4 for a display port to HDMI if you really need an adapter. Here's a mini as well. So if we go down here, here's our 4-port PCI card for our NVMe drives. And then again, here is $22 for a 256 NVMe drive. Here's a 512 for $32. And if we go down here, again, if you're going to do an SSD, $30 here. And for me, if I was doing this system, I'd probably just use the PCI card, because there's 4 slots, and 2 terabytes is a lot of hard drive space just for apps. At any rate, if you're going to do the enclosure and you're going to do the LSI controller card, you will need at least 2 of these right here, these SATA, SAS to SATA adapters right here. And then if you do need, if you do put in a card, a graphics card, a gaming card, and you need 6 to 8 pin, there's that there. And then here are your hard drive splitters, and then here is for $93. Again, some of these prices I was rounding up, rounding down to get to $550. And again, your price is going to, all these prices are going to vary depending on when you buy them, so on and so forth. But you're talking a 2 terabyte here for $93. So hope I didn't miss anything, but all the links will be listed down below. The reason why I'm making this video is that, you know, there are lots of pre-built 4-bay, 5-bay servers out there, but again, there are limitations. A lot of them now are coming with 10 gigabit built in, but the processors on them are getting better. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of them now that do have better processors that can run a lot of apps, but and the memory is getting a little bit better on them. But you get this one here, 64 gigs of RAM, you know, 32 threads, 36 threads. You can run whatever apps you want all day long with a system like this, and not have a problem. Not as convenient as one, and it's not as small as the ones that you buy off the shelf. But if you're into this DIY stuff, this is a great server to have. So I hope that was helpful. This is TJ with TechMadeEZ. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Now that was easy peasy.